This is Gadget Stop 321. In today's video, I'm going to revisit an ink that I've had for quite a while, but I've used it very little. Pilot Iroshizuku Chiku-Rin. And the reason I've used this one very little, I'm a big fan of the Pilot Iroshizuku inks, but here's a writing sample that I did using my Pilot Prayer with stub nib. It is just very pale, and so I had thought that it would, when I inked it up in the Pilot Prayer with stub nib, I thought that would be a good pen to use it in. But that the Pilot Prayer is somewhat of a dry writer, so it just really didn't put down enough ink. I've used it in my Pilot Prayer fine nib. That was also very bad. The line is just so narrow. It's just very difficult to read. Now, this little 15-ounce bottle came in a set of inks. Pilot Iroshizuku had, or maybe still has, I'm not sure, sets of inks for spring, summer, fall, and winter. This is the springtime set, and it came with Murasaki Shikibu, which I have a writing sample for it. It's one of my favorites. It's a nice looking ink, whether you put it in the stub nib or a fine nib, it looks equally well. Just a nice pale purple. And you can see my favorite out of the three is Asagao, which is a nice royal blue. It looks in the Prera, it's a little bit more pale than in a nib that puts down a little more ink, but it looks good in all of them. And my favorite pens to use it in are my fine nib pens. It's just a nice smooth writing ink. I love the way it looks. But I've got my Jinhao X750 with a Nemesine 0.6 stub nib that puts down a decent amount of ink, that I want to give this ink a second try. I think this pen may have a chance of making this ink usable. So I'm going to go back to my writing sample and see if this will look better than the writing sample with the Pilot Prayer. Well, if this will focus. May have to zoom out just a little bit. Oh, but I really want to zoom in farther. Oh, when I try to make it focus, it gets worse. Focusing problems today. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm just not going to mess with it. I hope it stays in focus. Okay. So the Jinhao X750 has turned out to be one of the pens I really enjoy writing with, especially when I switched out the medium nib for the .6 Nemesine stub. Now it is looking a little better. Yeah, it's looking a little more saturated. Oh, I apologize for the focusing issues. And I really like this stub nib because you get the broadness of line that you do with a medium. The downstrokes seem to be a nice broad medium, and the side-to-side strokes look like a good fine, and it just allows me to write smaller than I would with a medium nib, and my writing is still legible. Now, one thing I will say about this, you hear people talking about what is the difference between a wet and a dry ink. You'll know if you write with a wet ink and a dry ink, then you'll understand what the difference is. This seems to be a drier ink than the other inks in the line. These inks, the other two, the Murasaki Shikibu and the Azagao, when you put those in a pen, the writing's just smooth. You can tell there's ink in the pen. But with this one, like if I wrote with this with my eyes closed, it would feel like I'm writing with a pen that does not have any ink in it. The ink provides a little bit of lubrication, and a wet ink will provide more lubrication than a dry ink. Yeah. This ink is dry compared to others. But on the upside, it does appear that my X750 with the stub nib at least makes it usable. It's more legible than using it in the Pilot Prera. So at least I've got a pen that I can use this ink in, and so I'm going to use this in my journaling. I'm going to pair it up with a fine nib pen, maybe with a black or a dark blue in it, and try to get some use out of this. Chiku-Rin would maybe be better as like a highlighter ink. I don't know if there's a difference between highlighter inks, like you can get refillable highlighters. I don't know, with it being a dry ink, it might dry out the tip. I'm not sure. If anybody has any experience with using fountain pen ink in refillable highlighters, like the Platinum Preppy or the, let me see, the Pilot Petite 1 has the little sign marker. If you have any experience using those, just leave a comment below. And if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.